Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler.
Yes, he did. He gives it to Henry.
Quick snap. Breeze. Pass is incomplete. No flag.
4th and goal. And they're going to snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws caught. Touchdown.
Well, it really feels like the NFL is back to normal after what happened this week, given that we saw the Ravens fail to convert a 2-point conversion and lost the game from that. We saw Aaron Rodgers going crazy, and we saw a legitimate good choice. Wait, actually, maybe that doesn't sound like everything's back to normal. Well, in that case, it just means that we had another, given this season, at par. This week was definitely on par for the amount of craziness, weirdness, and excitedness that we've seen from the NFL this entire season, because we got a little bit to talk about, especially after this week, considering that there's a backup quarterback that should be a starter right now. A running back actually has a legitimate chance of winning the MVP, and should he actually? I mean, we're going to talk about that. Ooh, you poor fantasy owners when it comes to this team in particular. Then we're going to break down if the Packers are actually the clear NFC favorite at this point, and who are the contenders and the pretenders at the AFC conference. And it's Christmas time, all right? It's the best time of the year. Everyone loves it. And so, of course, in that sense, what we did in our UFC talk this week, UFC 70 just dropped. Go ahead, check that out anywhere, or you can find it at thefourthlong.com/MMA. But we talked a little bit of Christmas themed questions there, and I'm going to tell you guys what I want most for Christmas this year. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to our NFL Week 15 breakdown. Of course, I'm your host, Ross Sallin, and it's time for another one of these. I feel like only got 3 more after this one, and then we get into the playoffs. And for a lot of fans out there, your team might already be eliminated. They might not quite be eliminated mathematically, but they might as well be. So we're going to keep things talking. The season's just about over for a lot of people, but for these teams, it's still going strong. But before we hop into the biggest winners and losers of Week 15, of course, go ahead and make sure to check out a couple things once we're done here. Like you can see, if you're watching the video right now, whether it be on YouTube, Rumble, or even on Spotify. Yes, we have videos on Spotify now. You can go ahead and check out thefourthlong.com/apparel to get a pre-order of this very sexy, very comfortable, very good-looking 4th and Long trucker hat. It's about damn time we got these out, and ladies and gentlemen, it's about damn time you go over and pre-order one, because we got them for you. Just go ahead, hit that Google form from our website. Go ahead, get that in. Of course, a lot of stuff UFC 70 just dropped, or we've had weekly NFL shows for the past 14 weeks now, including the preseason and the offseason. Go ahead and make sure to check up on anything that you might have missed up to this point. And, of course, a brand new installment of Card Songs has dropped. Of course, that's our new card show with industry expert Ray Rodriguez in that one. And so go ahead and check that one out. That one drops every other Friday, and that's a great one either if you're a beginner or even considering getting into collecting cards, or if you're already established, you're a little bit advanced, but there's still plenty of stuff to learn. We'll still dropping the knowledge on you of who you need to go after and the best ways to get into collecting as well. Of course, the most recent one, we went over the best ways of how to get into the hobby, get into the market, and if you're already established there, what to do next. So that's a great one. You're going to want to go check that one out. Of course, that's just at thefourthandlong.com. But ladies and gentlemen, let's get into things here, because Tyler frickin' Huntley is now possibly a bona fide starter after what he pulled off against the Green Bay Packers. He scored 4 touchdowns in this one, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground, and he was a play away from possibly leading the Ravens to win that game. Of course, they were just a little close. Who knows if that 2-point conversion wouldn't even guarantee them that. We're going to talk about the Ravens a little bit later here, but he really proved himself here, and this is one hell of a breakout performance. Of course, he took over against the Browns last week after Lamar Jackson went down with a high ankle sprain. He was a starter this week, and it's a little bit up in there what's going on next week, and so we still might be able to see more Tyler Huntley, and apparently that's a fun thing to see because he is killing it. At least after in his first start this year, he blew everyone out of the water against a good defense in the Green Bay Packers. Now my second winner of the week is going to be, once again, Colts running back Jonathan Taylor, because he's my leading candidate for MVP this year. He finished this game with 170 yards, rushing touchdown. There was a 67-yarder to ice the game against the Patriots, and part of the reason why he's at least near the top of the MVP conversation is because this team is winning games because of him, whether it's through the ground, whether it's through the air with him. He has about over 1,500 yards rushing this year. He has over 300 yards receiving this year. He's going to break that 2,000-yard barrier for scrimmage yards. And if it wasn't for him coming so clutch this game, and also it helped that they had that blocked punt for a touchdown. The Colts were not in a good spot. Carson Wentz, your quarterback MVP is supposed to be a quarterback award because the quarterback's supposed to be the most valuable player on your team. Not when Carson Wentz throws for 57 yards and a touchdown and an interception. He's been good this year. He's been almost underrated, flying under the radar this year. But this definitely was not one of those games where he was being productive. And Jonathan Taylor saved it for them. He clutched it for them. This guy is a freaking animal. And really, the top three MVP candidates right now, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Jonathan Taylor. If you take a look, Aaron Rodgers has missed time. He's, if we're being honest, he's more than likely probably going to win at this point. Tom Brady, he's like the league leader in touchdowns and passing yards, but he's had some really iffy games, and now he just got absolutely shut out by the New Orleans Saints, a team that gave up 40 points to the Philadelphia Eagles, once again proving that NFL and football just does not make sense. Jonathan Taylor is obviously Aaron Rodgers is vital to the Packers. Tom Brady is vital to the Bucs, but I love what Jonathan Taylor's been doing there. I think the running back position is so overlooked when it comes to the MVP. I don't know how Derrick Henry did not win MVP last year. Aaron Rodgers, of course, he had a phenomenal season. Yeah, I'm not trying to take anything away from that, but when you're a running back, there's a lot of seasons where quarterbacks throw for over 5,000 yards in 40 touchdowns. I guess a lot isn't the best word for that, but that happens more often than we see 2,000-yard rushers. We've seen 8 of those in NFL history. I'm so mad that Derrick Henry didn't win the MVP last year. At least he won Offensive Player of the Year, but I honestly think that's more of a more telling award than MVP really is oftentimes. But if you want to make up for the mistake that the league made last year, if you want to actually prove that this award isn't just a quarterback-only award, Jonathan Taylor, man, there's almost no one more deserving than that. It's incredible that as a running back, he's even top 3 in this conversation. I think it's time to pull the trigger on him. Give it to Jonathan Taylor, especially if he keeps this up. He still has a few games left. If he goes off, he could break that 2,500 scrimmage yards margin. He has 17 rushing touchdowns right now. This guy is doing everything. Time to give him the recognition that he deserves, and not just some sort of Offensive Player of the Year. Is almost like you're probably the best guy, but here you go. And that's what I have to say on that situation there. And then if you want to throw it around to the losers of the week, of course you got to take a look at Urban Meyer, because he is never going to be hired as a coach again. In terms of just professional jobs, in any job, it is, whether it goes back to being a commentator, an analyst, anything like that, I don't think he's ever going to get hired in any position again in the sports world, or hell, even just the world in general, because this guy has turned to a mess of not only is he just a bad coach in the NFL, he's just not good. I was saying that after week 1, he's on the hot seat, but I'm surprised he made it past the bye week quite frankly. And, I saw this coming the whole way. But I didn't necessarily see why it was coming. He was just a bad football coach, but I was having these talks before he was cranking up on some random chick at the bar, even though he's a married man. Even before he was making his coaches, putting them on the spot, saying why they're a good coach, or whether it comes out of reports that he kicking players at practice. That is shocking, abhorrent, and just a bad coach. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I don't care. I mean, obviously I do. There's a lot that goes into how good of a person you are, correlates to how good of a coach you are and how respectable you are, of course. But it's not that he's just a bad person. It's not that he's a bad husband. Not that he has questionable tactics when it comes to dealing with his players and staff. He just isn't a good coach at the NFL level. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. You should be fired if you're a good coach or not, which I think he should have been fired solely just for being a bad coach. But he's definitely should be fired for all the other things going on with this. No matter how you look at it, it's not good. It's just awful. And it's about damn time he's gone from the league, quite frankly. And my second loser of the week is going to be not just the Bucs, not just Tom Brady, but fantasy owners of pretty much any Bucs player. Because they combined, according to NFL.com, with their fantasy scoring. If you combine Tom Brady's score, Chris Godwin's score, Mike Evans' score, Leonard Fournette's score, and Ryan Succop's score, you get stuck with 18 points. That's 5 from Tom Brady. That's 5 from Godwin, 7 from Fournette, 2 from Mike Evans, and -1 from Ryan Succop. 18 points from 5 players. It's a solid game if one player gets to 18. I guarantee there are so many people that lost in the playoffs this week because one of, if not more, of these guys crapped the bed this week. I absolutely guarantee it. I've also seen Brady get pissy during that game, telling Saints coordinators to I think what did he say in that video? I think he said, "F yourself, bitch." And then he's broken through a tablet like a whiny little baby. That made me smile. Absolutely. I am unapologetically a Tom Brady hater, but at the same time I respect the man because he's won a crap ton of Super Bowls and he pretty much holds every passing record there is. Doesn't mean I can't hate him though. Absolutely. You can hate and respect someone at the same time. There is nothing wrong with that. There is honestly everything. I encourage that a lot of the time because people like Tom Brady, they deserve that. So, my heart goes out to you fantasy owners because if your season ended because of a pretty much a super, super unlikely poor performance by either of these guys, whether it be from injury or just play, yeah, I'm sorry. That's just awful. Oh man, but before we get into our next segment, which is our overreactions, I just want to, of course, circle back on a couple things here. Of course, you can find all of our great content at thefourthandlong.com. A couple things that just came out, of course, our interview with head boxing coach from Team Alpha Male. You can go ahead and Coach Joey Rodriguez. Go check that one out at thefourthandlong.com/MMA. Also at thefourthandlong.com. I know, man, I'm saying that a lot this week, but who cares? Also, what I put up on YouTube and everywhere else is my demolition of the one chip challenge. That thing, a lot of people are afraid of it. I was afraid of it too. It sucked for a shorter than I thought it was going to be. So if you want to see something that hopefully impresses you, also something that was done for a great cause because you raised over $300 for Stand to Cancer, go ahead and check that one out. Of course, I live streamed it, and if you missed the stream, I do have a condensed version, about like a quarter length too, so you can go ahead and check that one out. There's about 10-minute stretch in there where it's just clips of me making random pain noises, and it wasn't necessarily fun to film, but it definitely was a It was an interesting time, and it was entertaining if if you're just watching it. That's for certain. But let's get into our overreactions here. Of course, if you guys don't know how this segment works, when I have Alex on the show, hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. I give him a few statements. It's up to him to buy it or sell it. Over here, I got a few reactions, a few statements I came up with from this past week of football. And it's up to us and you guys as well to determine if it is a overreaction or if there's actually some truth to it. All right, we're going to start things off, kind of piggybacking what we talked about with one of our winners from this week, and that is that the Baltimore Ravens offense is better without Lamar Jackson in quarterback. Because, just a couple things here, is that with Lamar Jackson in quarterback, they average 24 points per game. In the two games they've had Tyler Huntley either start or play the grand majority of the game and put up for all their points. They're averaging 26 points per game. And they also almost knocked out the Packers this week, of course. They missed that 2-point conversion to win it with about 40 seconds to go. By the way, I love that play call. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but John Harbaugh was mic'd up there. He was asking his guys. This is just a really good example of great coaching, by the way. And also, this really helped the argument of why John Harbaugh should be Coach of the Year this year. And there's a lot of the credit to that. And if he wins, I definitely would not complain about that. Because you see him huddling up with his guys, he's talking with them, and they want to go for two. And they want to win the football game. That's just, I mean, a lot of the guys, NFL and football players everywhere, you play to win the game, all right? And so I love this decision from the team. I love the aggressiveness. Of course, it didn't work out against the Steelers when Lamar Jackson really should have made that pass. I think they might have actually ran the same play here too, or at least a very, very similar one for the 2-point conversion. Of course, it is unsuccessful. And then also another great moment you see after is that Mark Andrews, who is easily a top 3 tight end in the league, had another phenomenal game. He goes up behind John and says that it was the right call. And yeah, I agree with him on that one too. It hasn't worked the past couple of times, but I love the aggressiveness out of that, and I have no qualms against the play calling. It's just that they really could have won these two games if those two plays were better execution. It doesn't come down to play calling, doesn't come down to personnel. It really comes down to proper execution of that play. And, properly executed play, they have 2 more wins and 2 less losses. But going after this, in this game, of course, Tyler Huntley, 215 passing yards, 73 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns in total, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. And then the Ravens have also failed to reach 20 points in 6 games this season. And a lot of the times the offense is it's really felt hit or miss. And this is a conception and a feeling that a lot of people have had around the league. And while Lamar Jackson has been real hot and real cold this year as well, those two scenarios go hand in hand. But the thing is that there might be a very rare situation, so I'll preface it. I will almost never say that a team is better with a backup quarterback in lieu of a former MVP winning quarterback who's one of the biggest dual threats in the league. Tyler Huntley is very similar to Lamar Jackson. Hell, you probably call him Diet Lamar, essentially. It's almost like maybe a better version, at least currently a better version of Jalen Hurts. I unequivocally believe that Tyler Huntley could and should be a starting quarterback in this league. Whether it's if it's for the Browns, I'll have a post coming about that later this week. Whether, at least for the Saints for the time being, whether it's for the Jets, whether it's for the Falcons, whether it's for the Texans, whether it's for the Jags at this point. Man, I really hope Trevor Lawrence can pull things around in the post Urban Meyer era, but it's been an awful first season. And Tyler Huntley absolutely could play quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. This guy starts on a lot of teams. Hell, he probably should start on the Broncos right now, too. That's something. You can throw the Giants out there, too. There's a lot of places that this guy can play and maybe will play for. He's definitely put himself into the conversation as someone to trade for to be your starting quarterback, or at the least be a really solid backup quarterback. So, no, the Ravens are better with Lamar Jackson in quarterback, but Tyler Huntley is a solid QB2, and he should be starting on one of these NFL teams, almost like how Gardner Minshew should be starting on one of these NFL teams. But the next thing we're going to talk about is going to Indianapolis and talking about the Colts, because they just knocked off the one of the best teams in football, the best team in the AFC at least, in the New England Patriots. Knocked them off at home when they kind of smashed them in a lot of categories of the football. I mean, we heard Bill Belichick say, and he was very correct on this, that they got beat in special teams, they got beat up on offense, they got beat up on defense, they got beat in play calling, in coaching, in execution of the plays, in performance. They got beat in pretty much every single category that you could do except passing. But then again, Mac Jones did have 2 interceptions. It just obviously was not a good game for the Patriots. And in fact, it was the worst game I've seen them look this entire season. But I don't think that's much of a discredit to the Patriots as much as is a credit to the Indianapolis Colts here, because they are a fantastic team. But the statement here is that they are the best AFC team. And they also have wins over the Patriots and Bills. They have a loss in overtime to the Ravens, which they blew a lead. And they also have a really close loss to the Titans and in overtime. And then they also have that really fantastic game against the Bucs, but ultimately they came up short in that one. They have the best running back in the league, as I talked about a little bit earlier in this one, and their defense is 9th in points per game, giving about 21 points per game there. In terms of AFC teams, they're behind the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Bills, and the Patriots. 2 of those teams they just beat. The Broncos are not good at football. They have a good defense, but that's about it, because their quarterback doesn't know how to throw a football, or he doesn't know how to hand it off to a 3-yard wide gap at the 5-yard line, and he chooses to run the football himself, and he lets a defense lineman just bully the ball away from him and take it and fumble and lose the game. I'm going off a tangent because I hate the Denver Broncos. I hate being a Denver Broncos fan right now. I'm going to take a breath. Whew. And then the really only team that they're truly behind in this one competitively is the Kansas City Chiefs, whose defense has definitely caught fire over the last number of weeks here. They are currently the 5th seed in the AFC. They're a game behind the Tennessee Titans. They're 2 games behind the Kansas City Chiefs for the best record in the AFC. And they definitely... They're a really interesting team, because this is one of the teams where I don't think I would want to see them in the playoffs, because right now they are not the best team in the AFC. This is another overreaction here. But they are right up there with the contenders. They are better than, even though they lost them in overtime, they have another game coming up. As of right now, I do think they're a better team than the Tennessee Titans. They are a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals. They're a better team than the LA Chargers. They are a better team than the Buffalo Bills. They are a really good football team, but the only thing standing in their way right now is a even better football team in the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the better team. They are absolutely the best team in the AFC right now. And they're probably Super Bowl favorites at the moment. I think actually, according to the odds makers, according to Vegas, actually are Super Bowl favorites, but it's easily between them and the Packers. Really interesting stuff going on right there between those two. If we finally get Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers with healthy teams, that's what we all need in our lives. But since it's what we all need in our lives, will we get it? No, probably not, because apparently as football fans, we don't deserve anything good. But, we should be used to that feeling by now. But like I say about the Colts, so they are a really dangerous team. And I would say that they do have the chance to possibly run themselves into a Super Bowl appearance if they get hot in the playoffs. This is a scary team. If Carson Wentz can get his crap together and maybe just get a little bit past just being a game manager and actually help them win games, that defense is stout. That offensive line is great. Jonathan Taylor obviously is the best running back in football right now. The only piece that's kind of lacking is Carson Wentz. And if he could get things going, this is a well-coached football team. This is a well-oiled machine. In Indianapolis, they might even be able to host playoff games this year. Who knows? I really like them as a team overall, though. But are they the best team in the AFC? Nope. That is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the last statement of the week is one that's it's going to be very apparent if it's an overreaction or not. But I figure it's still, I just wanted to put this in so I can have, I make the script. I make the agenda here. I talk about what I want to talk about, and this is how I'm going to talk about this player again. Because last statement of the show is that Deebo Samuel is a top 3 running back in the league. Obviously, this is an overreaction. He is not. The top 3 running backs in the league, healthy and current, are Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, and Joe Mixon. That's my top 3 right there. Would love to see what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree? Is there maybe another guy that I might be disrespecting? I'm not including Derrick Henry because he is not currently playing and he's not currently healthy. So, of course, when he's healthy, he is the best running back in football. But this is, of course, what we're seeing right now. But Deebo freaking Samuel, man. Honestly, I'm going to put him in the conversation for MVP. He's not going to win it. He is not my MVP. But I think he deserves to be around that kind of talk, and the players that you want to bring up for MVP. Let's talk about Deebo Samuel, because he's a guy that no matter where he lines up on the football field, you got at least a couple of guys on him, whether he lined out wide as wide receiver, lined up in the backfield as running back. He did again this week, ran for another touchdown. He's averaging almost 7 yards a carry. It's 6.9 if you want to be exact. 7 touchdowns on the year with only 39 carries. And a fun stat here is, so Jonathan Taylor, he's leading the league in touchdowns with 17 rushing. He's averaging 1 touchdown per 16 carries. Deebo Samuel is averaging 1 touchdown per 6 carries. That's almost a third of Jonathan Taylor's number. And obviously, maybe that stat doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. It certainly means that when Deebo gets his hands on the football, there is a 1/6, man, whatever the hell that percentage is. If you want to do 1 divided by 6, that's going to be 17%. Anytime Deebo Samuel is handed the football, he has a 17% chance of scoring. That's a ridiculous number. I just want people's heads to get around that. And San Francisco might not be having the best season. They're actually currently in the playoffs, which might be surprising a few people. But and also my prediction at the beginning of the year that there is going to be 3 NFC West teams in the playoffs is looking pretty good right now. And also that did include the Seahawks missing the playoffs and losing the division, which is something that they it looks very likely. Seahawks fans, they did not like that take on Twitter. That's for sure. A lot of them filled the replies. They're one of the saltiest franchises out there. Definitely one of the most active. Maybe not in the best of ways, though. But Deebo freaking Samuel, man, he's lethal. Is a wide receiver. He also has 1,100 receiving yards on the year and 5 touchdowns. Just has that going for him. He's a wide receiver with about 1,500 total yards right now. That's pretty damn good stuff. And man, he's been great for you on fantasy. So obviously no reaction, but people just need to be talking about Deebo Samuel as often as possible, because this guy is a freak of an athlete. Of course, let us know what you thought about those overreactions. Let us know in the comments over on YouTube, on Rumble, or hit us up on our socials at Twitter and at Instagram. Of course, Instagram is at 4th Long Radio. Twitter is at 4th Long Radio. You can find all those links over at thefourthandlong.com/MMA, or the best way to leave your opinion on the show is by leaving a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts. But we're going to head into some headlines here and then cap it off with all I want for Christmas and then, of course, the Nene of the week. But one of the things I want to talk about here is let's take a look at the Green Bay Packers, because are they clearly the best team in the NFC? They obviously have some competition here because the Cowboys are right up there. The Rams are up there. The Niners are up there. If you want to take a look at some of these other teams, there's some legitimate competition going on with them. Some of the other division leaders, of course, the Cardinals. Of course, the Bucs are up there. The Packers are the only team with a clinched playoff berth right now since they won the NFC North when they knocked off the Ravens this week. But they're 11-3. The other three division leaders there are sitting at 10-4. They obviously have some competition there. But if you want to take a look at what the Packers have done this year, they have wins over the Cardinals, who are currently leading the division there in the NFC West. They have wins over the Rams, who a lot of people think are the Super Bowl contenders and are probably the second best team to the Arizona Cardinals. Then they also have a win over the 49ers, who are currently a playoff team. Surprisingly, the only other playoff team that they played that's currently in the dance, but they lost to, is the Minnesota Vikings. So at least luckily coming up here in a couple weeks, they do have a redemption game possibly against that. And that's still going to be a game that they have to win. Hell, they might have to play all guys through week 18 so they can clinch that number 1 seed, because we all know how damn important that spot is going to be now, especially that's the only one that gets a bye, which honestly, these 17 playoffs are growing on me. Don't tell my old self that, but they kind of are. That definitely surprised me. But right now, they have the current MVP favorite, Aaron Rodgers. He's probably going to win it. Over the last 5 weeks, they have a top 10 defense in. Sorry, not just over the last 5 weeks, but they have a top 10 defense in yards and points per game, and they are offensively averaging 32 points per game over the last 5 weeks. Obviously, those are fantastic numbers. Those are right where you want to be. And they are the best team in the NFC. I think, I'm going to use the C word here. Yes, they are clearly the best team in the NFC at this point, because the only other teams that they can compete with are the Bucs, who are riddled with injuries right now. Godwin's out. Leonard Fournette's out for the year. Brady's iffy. Don't need more word about Mike Evans. And we saw how they performed without them against the Saints. That's not good. That's not promising. That is definitely going to hurt this team. They already have a win over the Arizona Cardinals, and they showed that they could beat that team. Cardinals are reeling over the last couple weeks now as well, especially after that blowout loss to the Lions. The Rams have been super iffy, super hit or miss, and the Packers have handled them. The only other team that's really questionable at this point to me is the Dallas Cowboys, but the Dallas Cowboys have a good defense, if not a great defense, with an average offense and an average quarterback right now. You're not going to win football games. You're not going to win playoff games with that. And, well, you might be able to win playoff games. You're not going to win a championship with that. And you're probably not going to be able to beat the Green Bay Packers with that. So right now, I will say it, put a stamp on it. There is nothing hesitant about this. The Green Bay Packers are clearly the best team in the NFC, and they are going to win this conference. I hope I don't regret making that statement, but here we are. Now, the last thing I want to cover before we get to all I want for Christmas and the Nene of the week is, let's play a little bit of contender versus pretender for the AFC division leaders. Of course, is the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Tennessee Titans. Let's go in order on this one. Starting from the AFC East. Thought about the New England Patriots because they've looked great this season. They have great wins over fellow great teams. Of course, they were looking real solid until they ran into the bus. Saw that as Jonathan Taylor. They ended up losing that game. But they hold some solid wins this year. They hold wins over the Chargers. They dominated the Browns. They dominated the Titans. They beat the Bills in in Buffalo. They have a close overtime loss to the Cowboys. They have a close loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, I'm still going to remind you guys that Tom Brady was outplayed by Mac Jones in that game. Let's not forget that. So the Patriots are a really solid team, and at this point, they lost to a good Indianapolis team, so I'm not going to hate on them too much. My decisions and like my mind is not going to change too much here. They are absolutely contenders at this point. Going to the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't have to say anything about here. Obviously, they're contenders. They have one of the best defenses in the league right now. They have one of the scariest offenses in the league right now. What I talked about last week is that I hinted and I told all you that I am more scared about that Chiefs defense than I am concerned about that Chiefs offense. I can't remember the last time I said that. Obviously, if you're going to this season, you would think I'd be crazy for thinking that, especially with how poor, and especially at the beginning of the season too, with how poorly that defense was playing. But they're all coming together. They're looking fantastic. And Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, that's a bad man. He made 4 guys miss on one play, and that was just a pathetic loss here for the Los Angeles Chargers. Tyreek Hill, that's another bad man. Patrick Mahomes, obviously that's a bad man. And their offensive line is starting to play together too, because that's one of the biggest downfalls of the offense has been their ability to protect Patrick Mahomes. But they're finally getting those problems secured. I know it can take time they have a new offensive line, and it can take time for those to mesh. I think they're finally meshing, and I think they're going to be really good. So, obviously, the Chiefs are absolutely contenders at this point, and they are the best team in the AFC. The next team here is going to be I can't believe we're saying it's the Cincinnati Bengals. They are a division leader at this point, and honestly, I think they're going to win this division because the Browns choked their chance away against the third-string Raiders with the practice squad team, and that was such a bad game. That was a really bad game, and it's even worse because the Browns lost that one. The Ravens, I'm just not sold on them. The Steelers, absolutely not sold on them, for sure. So the Cincinnati Bengals, of course, they finish their season. I would say that they finished the season 2-1. They beat the Ravens, they lose to the Chiefs, and then they beat the Browns in Week 18. I like the way that's shaping up to be. If they beat the Ravens, they beat the Browns, they win the division. So that's just the point they're at. I just don't see them being the Chiefs, especially because when we saw how they played against the Broncos. When you run into a really solid defense and stout defense, they didn't score a whole lot of points. Bengals only put 15. And let's talk about something here, just because I want to be a positive when it comes to the Broncos as much as I can be. Patrick Surtain, 3 tackles, 5 total. And if you want to take a look, guess who he was on most of the time? He was on Jamar Chase. And you want to know how many catches Jamar Chase had in this game? He had 1. You want to know for how many yards that was for? It was for 3. Patrick Surtain is freaking locked down. We haven't seen Jamar Chase clamp down like this all season long. Jamar Chase is a phenomenal athlete. Patrick Surtain is just that much better. And honestly, I'm happy that they drafted Patrick Surtain over Justin Fields. Honestly, I might be more sold on him than him and Mac Jones, given what we've seen as of late. Patrick Surtain is a phenomenal pick, even if you're a quarterback-heavy team or a quarterback-needed team. George Patton absolutely knocked this draft out of the park. Their Broncos having so many rookies there are playing phenomenally. Patrick Surtain is in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Javonte Williams is and should be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. The only person standing in Patrick Surtain's way, of course, is Defensive Player of the Year in Micah Parsons. But if he wins Defensive Player of the Year, that's probably going to be Patrick Surtain's award to win there too. So, of course, that video is almost at 1,000 views right now. Why Micah Parsons is not going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year is because he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I know J.J. Watt is, not J.J. Watt, but the other Watt brother is right up there in TJ. But can he cover a cornerback on a route to the end zone? I don't think he can, but you want to know who did and who can? Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is just, he's having an unreal season, isn't he? So I'm still holding true to my word that Micah Parsons wins Defensive Player of the Year. Patrick Surtain wins Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I can't wait for that to happen so I can gloat in everyone's face that are blowing up my comments and laughing and making fun of me, because that's going to happen. And in fact, that's not even, it's just not a bad take. Patrick Surtain's right up there. Another one of those cases where I guess I'm right. Oh, do your research a little bit more. Oh man, I'm turning to a dick right now, aren't I? Well, sometimes I feel the need to defend myself. And I'm defending myself. And Patrick Surtain is absolutely making my case look that much better here. But getting back to our actual topic, are the Bengals contenders or pretenders? They are contenders. They're going to win this division. They have a good team. Obviously, what was rough is that they ran up against a buzzsaw of defense, and Joe Mixon didn't do much of anything. Tyler Boyd was the real only hero of this game. Obviously, like I just said, Jamar Chase didn't do anything this game. So that's going to be tough. That's one thing I'm worried about. In terms of making the playoffs, they absolutely are contenders. But in terms of actually going anywhere in the playoffs, in terms of winning a game or making it to the divisional round, or even making it to the AFC championship game, the Bengals are pretenders, but that's not a bad thing because they're absolutely exceeding expectations this year. It's only going to give them more time to grow, and Zach Taylor is still a fantastic coach. Just because the Bengals aren't going to do anything in the playoffs this year, it doesn't mean they're a bad team. It's just going to be nice for, at least for that franchise, to win the division and to make it to the dance. I don't think they're going to do anything in there, so I will call them pretenders. Now, the last team we got here is the Tennessee Titans, and I think they're getting A.J. Brown back, but as long as they don't have Derrick Henry, that offensive line has been iffy. Taylor Lewan has not had a great season. Byard has had a great year in the defensive backfield. I don't think people are talking about him enough, quite frankly. Ryan Tannehill has not been great without his weapons. I can't fault him too much, but at the same time, I didn't expect him to throw 4 interceptions. So, the Titans, I'll put them in the same boat as the Bengals. Yes, they're going to make the playoffs, but unless, they might have Derrick Henry back by then. So if they have Derrick Henry, obviously everything changes. If you have Derrick Henry, you're probably going to win football games. But if they don't have him, right now, I do have the Titans slated as pretenders. But let me know what you guys think about that one. If I'm hitting the head on the nail with who's the contenders and who's the pretenders, or if I'm sleeping on the Bengals or Titans. Of course, like I said, Rumble comments, YouTube comments, 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, or hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. But the last couple things we're going to talk about here this week, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the things we're doing is all I want for Christmas. And what you want to know what I want most for Christmas? I want the Broncos to be able to actually run a 2-minute offense, because apparently, I don't know if Shimmer just doesn't know what that is, if it's something that doesn't exist for them, or if my answer, what I think is right, is that he's just a absolute freaking moron, doesn't know how to properly run the offense, because it feels like the Broncos have been in plenty of 2-minute drives this season. And every single time, it looks like they don't want to score. It looks like they're content for field goals. What I don't understand is that 90% of their plays, it feels like, and honestly, it might even be when they're running a 2-minute drill, is little 5-yard passes to the middle of the field. There's a couple people that take blame, but Pat Shurmur is going to take all of my blame and all of my hatred, because he's shown time and time out that he's just not a good offensive coordinator. At the end of the day, like how Urban Meyer is just not a good NFL coach, Pat Shurmur is just not a good NFL coach. And that's just a position they're in. He's not good, man. It's time to get him out of there. And also, talking about McMahon in terms of not knowing how to run a freaking special teams there. But I digress. Pat Shermer deserves to be fired. Deserves to be fired out of a cannon and into the sun and never seen in the sport of football again. Because I despise that man. I despise everything he does because he's just not good. But also a lot of the blame. I mean, most of the blame goes to Pat Shermer because he's the one actually dialing up these plays. He's the one actually trying to just get these useless plays, man. Like, it was so evident against the Bengals because they're driving before halftime. And the whole time they looked so content just to kick a field goal. They get to like the 35-yard line, where it's still like a 50-yard field goal, and Brad McManus misses. The offense ends up with 0 points. And hell, they left too much time on the clock, and the Bengals go down and get a field goal of their own. It was just a awful, awful series of events. But also it doesn't help that Teddy Bridgewater is just not a good medium to deep passer. He's just not. And so, obviously, both of those guys, if you're Denver, they have to go. And I just want something that looks like a competent 2-minute offense. I've seen junior football teams run a better 2-minute offense than what I've seen from the Broncos consistently. Obviously, that's not good. Oh, man. But let us know what you guys want for Christmas the most. I'll be getting a post out later this week on Friday, which is Christmas Day. So Merry Christmas to all of you guys. Bah humbug if you're a Raider fan, of course. Shout out to UFC MMA correspondent Blake. In every single one of our MMA shows, we always manage and find a way to talk about the Broncos and Raiders. So, of course, that's a good time. Go ahead, check that out. One dropped on Tuesday this week. Typically, they do drop on Thursdays. We have 70 of those suckers just dropped episode 70, so go ahead and check that one out, especially since we're not going to have a whole lot of MMA up until for about a month, about halfway through January, so go ahead and get your fill there. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to cap things off with the Nene of the week, like how we do every single week on every single show. This is how we do. And I talked about them earlier in this show here, and the team that absolutely deserves the Nene of the Week award is the Arizona Cardinals. Because listen to this stat. So the Lions entered that game with a record of 11-1-1. The Cardinals entered that game 10-3. Detroit is just the third team in the Super Bowl era to enter a game with fewer than 2 wins and to beat a 10-win team. So the Arizona Cardinals, the Lions, they made history. Arizona Cardinals ended up on the absolute wrong side of history for all the wrong reasons. Therefore, they get the Nene of the Week. As runner-up, too, for a second consecutive week is just a quick PSA for what I've noticed over the last couple weeks. If you're a visiting team, don't dance or meet pregame on the logo. Just don't do a Juju Smith-Schuster. We saw how that worked out for him. It's not working out great for these teams because the Titans they do this, they lose. And then we saw the Raiders do that, they get blown out. Just stop doing that. It's not working. Move past it. There's no reason to do that. It's just dumb. And apparently, it loses you games as well. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here for our NFL Week 15 breakdown. Let me know your thoughts on everything that we talked about today, whether it be on our Twitter at 4th on Radio, Instagram at 4th Along Radio, YouTube comments, Rumble comments, or best of all, you can leave a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts. And a huge shout out to our fantastic Patreon supporters. Of course, biggest shout out goes to our biggest member, Ray Rodriguez, for all your card collecting needs. Go ahead and go on over to Instagram, follow at the Big Bat Box, and get started on that today. Also, watch Card Stonks every other Friday, the4thalong.com. Huge shout out to Ryan Watson and Neil Wiley. And of course, go check out that interview with Team Alpha Male head boxing coach, Coach Joey Rodriguez, one of the most slept-on gyms in all of the MMA world. And, man, I gave you guys some advice. My advice going to Week 16 is don't bet on the NFL because, honestly, man, I don't really think much works. So do that. And but ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in this week. It's always fantastic to see all of you guys that consistently listen to the show, that consistently like the show, and just your support means the world to me. It's my most favorite Christmas gift the last couple years now. This is like kind of we did pretty much a soft relaunch this year, so it's obviously been fantastic. You've been killing on the engagement, killing on the followers, killing it on our subscribers. We're getting close to 1,000, and I will be doing a giveaway coming up for that very soon, so please stay tuned. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Can't wait to see all of you next week, and have a Merry Christmas.